There we are. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with 150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares, and I'm joined on this Sunday evening by my esteemed colleague, a very dressed up Tim Legler. Legs, how you doing?
Dressed up, man. Like, you know, we're casual on this show, but I got to dress a little nicer for Sports Center. So I just did some Sports Center. That explains the long sleeve collared shirt.
You like it. You go from one thing to the other. Maybe I should we make a business formal or more of a business formal dress code for the show next season. What do you think? Suits and ties every day.
I'm good with it, man. I'm good with it. That's like, you know, spruce it up a little bit. Make it a little bit more professional. You know what I mean? I'm kidding, obviously. You kidding me? I don't think I'd do it if you made me do that.
He's like, I'm out of here, man. No chance. I'm the same way. I'm like Mark Dagnott. I don't want to put on a suit. I got the hoodie. That's good enough. On today's show, we're going to wrap up the Eastern Conference Finals. The Pacers get the win over the Knicks. And yes, we're going to talk about the Pacers because there were so many interesting things that they did in their bounce back / closeout game of the Knicks. Dominated them in the third and fourth quarter. We're going to get to that. And then later on in the show, we're going to talk about the Knicks and how do we judge their season. They go to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they get beat by this Pacers team. And to me, they look like a flawed team. And so I'm curious to get Legler's take on that and just find out how close he believes the Knicks are or if they are tragically flawed. But first, Legs, this game was close to halftime. It was the third quarter where the Pacers made a series of runs that opened up the game. That really was the entire third and fourth quarter, just these little runs that kept extending it. What did you see that led to them getting the win?
Yeah, I think everybody was pretty nervous in that building at halftime, right? 4-point lead. You felt like the Knicks took a punch and they were only down 4. And the close to the second quarter wasn't particularly executed well on the part of Indiana. And you're walking off the floor and you're up 4. The one good thing about it was the pace was good, right? That was a good thing for Indiana. Like you walk out, you got 58 points at halftime. In a game this important, you know, with all that pressure, I would have expected less. Like even for a high octane team, like, you know, I think you're looking at 48-46 halftime. Like that's what this kind of game felt like it was going to be. So that was the one good thing. But they definitely felt like they blew an opportunity at the end of the second quarter to get that thing to like double digits by halftime. It was only 4. And I was kind of like, okay, man, it's going to be, if the Knicks can hang in the third quarter, all the pressure shifts to Indiana in the fourth quarter. Because now you're talking about making shots in front of your home crowd to not have to go back to New York for a game 7. But the Knicks couldn't do that. And you're right, man. It was right out of the gate. Siakam hits a 3 first trip. And just like that, you're up 7. Doesn't that feel like significantly different? Even just 4 to 7.
Totally.
Right? It just feels so different. And then Aaron Nesmith hits a 3. Yep. And now it's 10. You're a minute and 10 seconds into the second half. You now have a double figure lead. And now you start to feel like this is going to be difficult for the Knicks. I don't care about Jalen Brunson factor or not. This is going to be tough now when you got a home team getting a double-digit lead in the second half with that kind of crowd and energy. So to me, you're right. It was the third quarter, Adam, and it was you're right. It wasn't steady. It's not like they came out and put their foot on their throat immediately and it just went to 20 and it stayed there. No, like the Knicks continued to like fight, and you look all throughout the quarter. They got it to 8 with 5:47 to go. Pacers call timeout. Actually got it to 7 after that. Nesmith hits a shot. Thomas Bryant makes a shot. TJ McConnell hits a 3. Just like that, you're back up. Now it's in the teens. So it wasn't just one run, to your point. It was multiple sustained runs. And to me, it kind of typified what this Indiana team is, which is relentless offensive pressure. That's what they put on you the entire time. Now, they don't always shoot well, or certain guys might have off nights. The tempo and the pressure they're applying to you never changes. And so therefore, that's what it felt like. It's like, man, the Knicks, how many of these can the Knicks hold off? And finally, it was too much. The weight of it was too much. And by the end of the third quarter, I think everybody was pretty certain how this was going to go.
And you're right about the runs here, because even in the first half, there were these little runs, but the Knicks kept closing the gap. So you go up 6, and then it's tied. You go up 4, and then it's tied. It's like you're staying connected. When that balloons to 11 and you go on a 6-0 run, it's still a 5-point game. And that's kind of what happened in that second quarter. It just kept ballooning. So every time the Knicks would make some kind of run, they would still be outside of striking distance. And as you were talking and mentioning Nesmith and TJ McConnell and all the guys, the Thunder and the Pacers have both arrived in the finals in a similar way in this regard. In key moments, not throughout the entirety of the playoffs, but in key moments in key games, role players made big-time shots. So Nesmith, McConnell, and how about Thomas Bryant? 3 threes in this game, 2 in a row in the third quarter. Yeah, that was another run. So they open it to 11, it cuts back down to 5 or something, and then he hits a couple threes, opens it up again. And to me, that's how you win a championship. That's how you win a conference, is you get timely contributions from your key guys. Thomas Bryant, the most surprising of them all.
I felt so good for him. I'm such a fan of Thomas Bryant. How can you not be, right? Have you ever seen a dude like that consistently, like energized and hype and enthusiastic and like intense, but at the same time, clearly having fun? And I've been a fan of his ever since college. And to think about the reprieve you get. You're playing in Washington. Okay. You're playing in Washington. And now you're going to the NBA finals, like in the same season. It's incredible. Like what a break the basketball gods gave Thomas Bryant, and hasn't really been. Hasn't, yeah. But he was in Washington before that. I'm saying he was in Washington.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So you think about a guy like that, and you don't know when you're going to get out of a situation like that. It's clearly not healthy, and Miami had a lot of unhealthy stuff. And then now look at this. And the thing is, he wasn't even really solidly in the rotation in the playoffs. He was in the regular season because they had to play extended time without Miles Turner. And he was big during that time. But in the playoffs, it's been a little bit spottier. So to get that opportunity in the biggest game, right, since 2000 for the organization, a chance to go to the finals for the first time in 25 years, to get called, you get your number called, and you're able to play that well, man. And the timing of those blows that he delivered were just so huge in the game from a momentum standpoint. I was just so happy for him. And it was called out by Ernie Johnson there in the post-game celebration when he was interviewing Pascal Siakam. He got to say a few words about Thomas Bryant. So he had, his moment in the sun as an NBA player came on Saturday.
When you're a 10th, 11th, 12th guy and you're on a good team, that's all you could hope for is a moment. Yeah. You're not going to be able to make a huge impact, but if I go in there for 6 minutes, can I have a moment, a steal, a rebound, a corner three, and he delivered a block shot and 2 corner threes in the exact same spot, all in basically one sequence, and it was awesome. It really got that arena going. My top story, though, from this one, Legs, and I'm curious if it's your top as well, what Andrew Nembhard did defensively was unbelievable in this game. So Nesmith gets injured in the last one. He's been guarding Brunson this whole time. Brunson's obviously a tough cover. Nembhard did not have success against Brunson in the regular season. And you get into a playoffs, and I had this stat. Actually, I was listening to Caitlin Cooper's show. She covers the Pacers, does a phenomenal job, as good as anyone covering a team. He had more possessions guarding Jalen Brunson in this game than he had in the previous 5. And he didn't just do a good job filling in, which is what you kind of ask of him. Just fill in, do what you can. He was unbelievable. And I might even say shut him down defensively. That was a bad game from Brunson. And it was because Nembhard did everything you need to do on defense against him in that game from start to finish.
No doubt about it, man. It's one of the massive storylines of this game. And what's crazy is I'm watching this game and I'm going, man, all this contact. And by the way, I'm cool with all of it and I'm cool with it not being called. It's that important. Let guys play. But Jalen Brunson wasn't getting any of the whistles that he
Yeah.
gets normally. He wasn't getting any of that. So he took 2 free throws. 2. Jalen Brunson comes out every night. He's like, put in a minimum of 6. Some nights it's 8, 10, 12, whatever it may be. And he controls the game. It feels like he had 2 free throws in the game. And he got so frustrated. There was I thought he headbutted Nembhard on that play when Nembhard had scored, was talking all the way up the floor. Brunson gave the ball up. Nembhard was backpedaling, but he was like right in front of his face, backpedaling. And all of a sudden, Brunson just lunged his face into his cheekbone. Do you remember that play? And they didn't call it. Nembhard kind of turned and looked at the official. I actually think, I don't know if that's not the kind of thing they can look at. Nobody saw it, whatever it may be. I actually think absolutely if they saw that on a replay, they would have thought that's an intentional headbutt. And there's no telling what would have happened in that situation. But that's how bad he got under his skin. Brunson looked frustrated. He was not getting the whistle. The game was incredibly physical both ways. And that benefited Indiana in this game because that's typically a game that Brunson's going to eat you up at the foul line, and he could not get there. And he ends up with 19 points. And going into a game like this, like you kind of figure Brunson's going to have to get at least 30, maybe 35, maybe 40. Like it's going to have to be one of those games. That's a Brunson game. It's his game. He owned the game, including like big shots in the fourth quarter. They never let it get to that point, man. They took all that off the table by going up 15 in the third quarter and keeping it there, for majority of the fourth.
He only took 18 shots, which, I mean, in an elimination game, your best player is going to take a lot of shots if they can get shots off. But I just thought what Nembhard did defensively, I mean, here's what's good about him. One, and I'm curious your take on this, but I got a little bit more. He does defend without fouling very well. I think he's one of the better players in the NBA at challenging shots vertically. So he kind of shadows you. And then when you go into your shot, he almost puts his chest out, his arms back to make sure he doesn't come down and just makes you make the shots. But he did a good job of veer switching pick and rolls. He did a good job of fronting the post and getting around the post when he had to. He did a good job in the gap. So there were times when he would get switched off and then get back over to help with proper timing. To me, it was every aspect of defense he executed perfectly. And for him to step up in that moment, there's a reason they didn't put him on him in games 1 through 5. In game 6, it felt like a compromise. Okay, you're going to have to step in and do a good job. But it wasn't that. He did every aspect. It actually looked like Caruso. He looked like Alex Caruso is how he defended Brunson.
And look, one thing I want to point out, because I'll own stuff. Last year, I thought it was a massive mistake to put him on Brunson. They survived that series, and the Knicks were walking wounded by the end of that. We all know how banged up they were. They had no depth whatsoever. I thought it was a complete mismatch whenever Nembhard guarded Brunson. I didn't think he's big enough. And because Brunson is going to hit you with that shoulder to get into that step back, or he's going to step back and then pump fake, and you're going to go for it. He jumps into you and creates fouls. I thought he was a complete mismatch when he guarded him last year in the playoffs. So I wasn't a big fan of Nembhard guarding Brunson. And in this game, you go and if you could just put all those possessions together and just watch them, pretty impressive, man, what he was able to do. The commitment that he had to his task and his job, go out there and slow this guy down. You don't have to stop. Just make him less efficient tonight. Do it for a night, and we're going to end up in the NBA Finals. Do your part in that regard. And he bought into it fully and still contributed offensively. Wasn't like he was out there just one of those little 3-and-D face guard guys. Like I'm not a factor offensively, but I'm not going to let you score. He was also handling the ball. He's probably with that starting unit. He's like the second most important ball handler they have. He still contributed offensively, but everything he did on that end was overshadowed by what he did to Jalen Brunson defensively and the commitment he had and the minutes he had on him. It was a win for him, and it was not a year ago in a similar situation.
So if he was MVP of this game, and I think he was, by the way, I think Nembhard was the MVP of this game, even though Pascal Siakam was the MVP of the series, which I'll ask you about in a second. And he was himself incredible. 31 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, 3 blocks. That's literally everything. But here's what I was thinking about as I watched this game. He guarded Cat unbelievably well, was aggressive, got his hands, didn't get beat off the dribble, but was aggressive, pushing him to spots. But he also was great pressuring secondary ball handlers. He guarded Cat, he guarded switches or guys in transition like speedy guards, and he guarded in help side. Draymond Green can do that. Maybe 3 or 4 other players can do that in the NBA. The versatility that he showed defensively in this one, while also leading the game in scoring, to me, that was an all-time Pascal Siakam performance.
Totally agree with you. And look, when they went out and acquired him, like there was several players in the market that they were looking at. They ended up with the perfect fit for what they do. Because the thing about Pascal Siakam, he's always had a really high motor. It's always stood out about him. Like he just runs and plays and he just keeps coming at you. But you also don't have to run anything specifically for him. He's the kind of guy that like would just, you throw him in any like pickup game with high level players, he's immediately going to fit in and play well because you don't have to run stuff. He does everything through activity. He's very skilled. For a guy 6'10", he handles it. He shoots the three. And here's the most important thing. People need to remember, like, this guy is a champion. He went through this stuff. He won a title, and he wasn't just along for the ride. I mean, I know that was Kawhi's team. That's how we're going to view that Raptors team. But Pascal Siakam was a huge part of that. They don't win the title without him. And so he's been through this stuff. He's not going to be fazed by the pressure of having to win a game 6 at home or go on the road and possibly get closed out. He was the guy that was setting the tone early in the game because it took Haliburton a while to get going. And Siakam was the guy that made sure they were toe-to-toe with that team because he came out and he was comfortable. Right from the beginning, he was comfortable. And his versatility was huge in this game. And again, the fact that you don't have to go keep calling his number. He's not an isolation player, man. Just let him play. Just long as the ball's moving, Pascal Siakam's going to be just fine because he'll cut, slash, offensive rebound, catch and shoot three. Everything is a quick decision. He was sensational in the game. He deserved MVP of the series. He had 3 30-point games in this series, 17 twice. His low game was 15. So that was his floor, 15. He didn't have a 6-point game or a 3-point game. He had 15 as his bad game, 2 17s and 3 30s. Man, that's showing up. That is showing up in a big way, man. And now this organization is on the verge of doing something they've never done.
So the last guy that obviously we're going to mention here is Tyrese Haliburton, who had 21, 6, and 13 himself to go with 3 steals and a block shot. He was also great, a little passive in this game, although as I watch this one, it's easy. If they lose this game, we probably talk about Tyrese Haliburton getting off to a slowish start, not being very aggressive. But they overload on him, and I think that this was part of it, is they just tilted their defense a little bit more to him, and Siakam is able to go, Nembhard's able to go. But it got me thinking, and it's the headline topic here, Legs. When Siakam got traded, I think everybody said, oh, that's a good fit on that Pacers team. You just said it. He's a good fit because of the style they play. The style they play is Tyrese Haliburton's. And I never really thought about it in the regular season, but that is a duo, the Haliburton-Siakam duo, not in the traditional sense that it's always pick and roll between 2 guys or posted, back and forth, but just in that having the release valve that is Pascal Siakam, if you overload on a Haliburton, and then having a guy in Siakam where you have somebody that's going to read the court as well as you do off ball. Those 2 guys are not thought of as a great duo. And yet here they are in the finals in large part because they're such a great duo.
Totally agree. And it looks like they have a really strong relationship. Look, by all accounts, Pascal Siakam is just like everything you could want in a player in terms of the locker room, the work ethic, the way he is as a teammate, as a human being, easy to be around, not moody, not egotistical, but has confidence at the same time. So, and Haliburton and he look like they have gelled and bonded. Like, it's funny, like he got the series MVP. Some people might have voted for Haliburton or thought it could have been Haliburton. And, I guess you could make an argument for that and had clearly like the defining game in the series. The game 4 was the best individual performance in this series. But overall, I thought the consistency of Siakam got it, but it wasn't one of those situations where, remember, it was Tatum and Brown last year in the finals, and it was like people thought that was like going to be bothersome for Jason Tatum, and it's like I didn't think about that at all yesterday watching these 2 guys. It looked like Haliburton was genuinely happy for the guy, happy to just win, happy to go to the next stage. But it is funny what you said. Like, he helped end this thing in the fourth quarter. He hit 3 straight floaters. Now, the game probably wasn't over yet by NBA standards. It felt like this is going to be really tough for the Knicks here, but it wasn't really technically over when he started making those little runners. His passing was sensational all night. For a guy that was like struggling coming off of game 5, game 6, slow out of the gate, people are starting to go, what's going on with Haliburton, man? Under pressure. Guys that are really feeling it, they're also not getting the assist he's getting because they're afraid to make those kind of passes.
Right.
They're too careful. If you're a guy that's really feeling the moment and you're like tightening up and you're a scorer or shooter, and you're also going to be conservative with your passing because you're like, you don't want to risk it. Oh, now on top of it, he's turning the ball over. I thought Haliburton was throwing passes, even when he was struggling to score, that were so precise, so perfectly delivered that he was still having a big impact in the game. So it didn't feel like the other night when you're like, man, he didn't really impact the game at all. Either way, that didn't feel that way. So then he ends up with these runners. And now at the end of the game, you look up and you go,
yeah,
for history's sake, 20 years from now, you want to pull up the box score of this game, you're going to go,
21. Yeah, that's good.
13 assists, 6 rebounds. The guy had a hell of a game. And the truth is, to your point,
right.
For like 2.5 quarters, we were kind of like, oh man, what's going on with Haliburton? But it doesn't matter now. He did put his stamp on it. And again, his floor leadership, vision, and facilitation for guys, man, was off the charts, even when he wasn't scoring in this game.
So I agree with you, by the way, about, there's this new conference finals MVP, which I'm a fan of. I like it. It just creates a storyline. It creates something to talk about. If I had a vote, would have voted for Tyrese Haliburton. And I like you, I have no problem. 1A, 1B to me, because they both were great. They both did amazing things. But I always go back to, when I'm looking at this, I look at it and I go, Haliburton is the personality of this team. Like, everything they do, he's the engine. He's the center of everything. And he was great throughout. So if I had a vote, I would have gone to Haliburton. But I'm also not bothered that it was Siakam. Who would you have voted for if you had a vote?
It's funny you said that. So I'm watching the game. My wife's a big fan. She watches the games. We were watching the game together, and it ended, and we were watching all the post games. She goes, "Who would you have voted for?" She asked me, and I said I would have voted for Siakam. Well, I thought, I would have, and like, I'm not going to say it wasn't close. Haliburton had an argument for sure. So like you saying you would have voted for him. I don't know. Did they release?
It was like 6-3 or something like that.
Oh, was it? Okay. Because I didn't even see that. Okay. That's about what I figured it would be. Yeah, about 2/3. That's what I thought. That's kind of how I felt. Like 2/3 of my heart was in that vote, and a little bit for Haliburton. Because like I said, and I actually think if Haliburton just had a really good game in game 4 and they won, it would have been not close in my mind.
Yeah.
But the fact I just watched, as I put it, a game played at the highest level you can play point guard in the NBA, that's really what I felt about that performance.
Yeah.
That made it closer. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just like a good game. It was a historic
perfect game. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. He pitched a perfect game that night. So it made it closer. But for me, in the totality of the minutes over the 6 games, I just felt like the consistency of what Siakam was giving you, spectacular at times in his own right, but really good the rest of the time, and not really a lot of quiet time. Yeah. That to me tipped it in his favor, and I thought they got it right.
What I will say is it's cool that, like the Celtics last year, which was the first, I think the first year they did it. Did they do it 2 years ago for Denver? They might have. They might have done it, Denver and Miami. But you have last year with the Tatum and Brown. You could say you could make a case for either one. This guy stepped up a little bit more, even though we think this guy's the better player. I like this award, and I like the teams that are making it to the finals where it's so balanced that you're not surprised Siakam could win that award. You're not surprised if Haliburton would. That's what makes a cool team, a true team, and that's what they are. The last thing I have for you before we take a break and then get over to the Knicks side, I'm curious how beneficial or meaningful it is when teams have a pre-camp get-together. And this was well publicized that Pascal Siakam had the entire team down a week before training camp began, and they had there's video of it where he said, hey, man, we have to come together before camp. Let's set the tone, establish our values and what it is we're working for so that when we get to camp, we're hitting the ground running. I made note of Denver this year that did not happen in any capacity. Guys flew in the morning of media day. Didn't even talk to each other, any of this. And to me, it was a red flag. But am I overstating it? Or are those things actually important? Hey, before camp begins, voluntary, everyone come in because we're going to get together and run our own camp.
Well, here's my point. Here's my thought on it. And I was on teams that did it and other teams that didn't. And I was on teams that did it and it wasn't beneficial. And here's what I mean by that. So not only do you have to, I think it is important. I think it's great. I think it's great bonding. I think it's great opportunity to get to know each other better as men. I think that's a big part of success in professional sports. I really do. Respect for each other as men. And you only do that by spending time and having different topics come up and you're talking and you hit it off, whatever. But here's the thing. So it's important to get together. But if you don't have a bunch of good dudes, it has the opposite effect. Because imagine Adam, for instance, you and I and James and Emma, our beloved Emma, who's back producing today. We got together in person like a month before the show. A little team bonding.
Yeah.
Let's go to Vegas together.
As it
turns out, after a few days, I'm like, God, Adam is a jerk. This guy's a jerk. I signed up for this.
What a disaster.
Okay, because I got to know him as a man, and he's a jerk as a man. Pretty talented broadcaster. What an ass. So you could have the opposite effect. Everybody gets together, they fly in, and you're like, man, one of these dudes is like so selfish. So it's helpful if it's really healthy because the guys are all about what that's supposed to mean and why you're there. Because if not everybody's doing it, particularly if it's one of the top guys is there, but not really bought into what it's all about, it actually now can set the tone for like a bad camp, bad start to season and whatever. So you got to have both components. And I think Indiana clearly has that.
You started a rumor. Look at the chat now. Adam killing the culture. He's ruining the vibe around here.
If I said it once, I said it 1,000 times. That Mares, man, you got to overcome a lot with him from a morale standpoint. It's unbelievable.
I think I'm more just like Michael Jordan. Some guys can handle it. Some guys can't, Legs. I don't know which one you are. I'm just pushing it. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we got to talk about the New York Knicks, what went wrong for them in this game, as well as what went wrong for them in this series, or maybe nothing went wrong for them. Maybe the best you could hope for is to get to a Game 6 in the conference finals and let the chips fall where they may. I'll ask Legs that on the other side. First, the NBA playoffs are heating up, and there's no better time to experience the intensity than in person. Whether you're trying to catch your favorite team live or just looking for the best deals on live event tickets, let us tell you about our friends at Vivid Seats. Vivid Seats is the best place to get your tickets for any game or show. They have the best selection of seats and 100% buyer guarantee, and they're the only ticket marketplace that rewards you for every purchase. For a limited time, our listeners can use the promo code ALLNBA30 to receive $30 off of their first Vivid Seats purchase of $300 or more. You see the deal right there on the screen. Just click the link in the show notes or download the Vivid Seats app and use the promo code ALLNBA30 for $30 off of your first purchase, $300 or more. And that's not all. For the remainder of the NBA playoffs, which is about a week and a half, Vivid Seats is giving away free tickets every single week. Check out the exclusive Game Center in the Vivid Seats app and play NBA playoff pick for your chance to win. When it comes to playoff hoops, being there is all that matters, so experience it live with Vivid Seats. Also want to tell you guys about Lucy Nicotine. It's 100% pure nicotine, always tobacco-free, available in pouches, gum, and our favorite, the Breakers. Breakers are pouches, but with a capsule of liquid flavor inside that helps saturate the pouch. Breakers are available in 4 milligram or 8 milligram options. They have flavors like mint, berry, citrus, and espresso. Pouches go all the way up to 12 milligrams. And if you're not a pouch guy or gal, Lucy Gum is available in 2, 4, or 6 milligram options. Level up your nicotine routine by going to lucy.co/allnba and use the promo code ALLNBA to get 20% off of your first order. Lucy offers free shipping and has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. That's lucy.co and use the code ALLNBA to get 20% off and always free shipping. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. All right, back here, segment 2 of the All NBA show, Sunday night edition. We'll be back Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday this week, previewing the finals, and then obviously reacting to game 1 of the finals. But Leg, so the Knicks dropped this one, and they make it to the conference finals. The Pacers, I thought the Pacers were the better team, and I know a lot of these games, they're going to be kicking themselves about game 1 because they had that one in the bag, and if they got that one, this whole series maybe is flipped upside down. But how do you analyze what you saw from them this year? Are they on the right path, or were they exposed to having some kind of weakness that you look at and say it's not going to get better next year?
Well, man, I think it's probably a little bit of the latter. I think they are, a flawed team. I think that as good as some of the guys are defensively that they brought in, still think they're a team that defensively can be attacked very specifically with Brunson and Towns. And they're on the floor all the time. And it's the data backs that up. So that's a problem for them. It's a factor for them. I also think, at the end of the day, Jalen Brunson, as great a player as he is, his style of play, right, is that conducive to getting the most out of everybody that you're going to need to make a run through the East and the kind of teams you're talking about beating? Pacers are a deep team. They're a fun team. They're a fast team. Celtics were a team that, listen, they blew 2 games to start that series. Let's not kid ourselves. They gave the first one away. The second game, you can't give up 2 20-point leads at home in the playoffs, man, to start a series. Come on. Then they win a game, and then, of course, game 4, they lose. Tatum gets hurt. The Cavs were not fully healthy at the end of the year. But look, these teams aren't going away. And you look at the Knicks and you go, is the style of play that Brunson brings to the table, is like that what ultimately is enough offensively with enough diversity in your offense to overcome anything that you see on a given night? And I felt like the Pacers were in this series. Like there was enough coming at you from all different places. Even their bench, and you put in McConnell, like what he does and how he's allowed to play, right? The way Mathurin plays. Neesmith's out there very intent with a specific role. They're stars. The ball moves and it hops. With the Knicks, it's pounded a lot. It's dribbled a lot. It's just a different vibe, and they've got some issues defensively. And obviously their depth is a factor. So I do think that I never thought at any point the Knicks were the best team in the Eastern Conference. They ended up hosting this series because the top 2 teams were eliminated. I never thought the Knicks were going to the finals. And I thought the Indiana Pacers were going to win this series. So I guess I've always looked at the Knicks as kind of like they're a nice team. They've got a great offensive player, very difficult to stop. But overall, there's some stuff there that's not quite good enough for them to be, in my opinion, an actual title contender right now.
The way I look at it, and it sounds like such a hot take as you make the conference finals, I think I would understand if there were Knicks fans upset about this because they say, hey, man, you're right there. Ball bounce is different. Maybe we're going to the finals. Let's see what happens. But when a team has a very obvious weakness, to me, it's hard to buy them. And to me, it's Brunson and Cat are difficult to build a defense or, a solid defense when you have both of those guys on the court. And it's one of the reasons we saw the numbers throughout the entire playoffs. They would be better with these little different lineups on, not just necessarily their starting lineup. And I thought Towns, he took a beating after this game. Everybody came out and I thought blamed him. And it was almost too much because I understood he messed up a lot of defensive assignments. Do you remember the first play of this game, by the way? There was a pick and roll. I think it was Siakam to Nesmith. Wide open dunk under the basket. Do you remember that play? It was like the very first points of the game. And I think Towns just messed up his coverage to give up a wide open dunk. And you're thinking elimination game, play number 1, you get lost. So I think he deserves a lot of the blame, but at the same time, the players are who they are. I don't think Cat and Brunson can win a title defensively because Cat can't cover for Brunson's weaknesses or guard the pick and roll like that.
I agree. And look, we know how this league works now, man. It's all about coming up the floor. It's a pick and roll league, and it's a nicer league, and that's really what it is. And it's pace and pick and roll. That's all you do in this league anymore. And if you have a great post player, I guess the ball will go in there some. There's not that many of them in the league anymore. So there's only a few teams that have to play that way. But when you can target who you want to play against in ball screen, you got a real problem if you got two guys consistently involved that are not very good at it. And that's the case. And that's not like I think Jalen Brunson doesn't try to play defense. I just think that like first of all, he's not lightning quick. Laterally, defensively, he's not super quick. He's better playing against a guy that's not as quick, that's strong, because his strength then can negate that because he's very strong. He's always on balance. But he's not like super quick to guard a guy that's got a burst or that's got a really live handle. That's a problem for him. And he's not going to like be killing himself to get over screens or meet you on the other side because he's got to go do that thing on the other end of the floor. And it's just hard. And then Towns, same kind of, he doesn't seem, well, first of all, I don't know if it was Tibbs or Towns or if it was the game plan or it was an over-exaggerated way of doing it by Towns, but their drop coverage was an abomination, man.
Yeah.
Like you can't play drop coverage all the time again in this league against guys that can score handling the ball. You just can't. I hate drop coverage, period. I can't imagine the guy, how inept the guy would have to be handling the basketball for me as a head coach to say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to sag off to such an extent that guy can come off the screen and have all the space he wants. I don't know what league it would have to be for me to see a player that I would think this is appropriate coverage against. When there's different ways to play it. That's one way. I could eat ways to play that. You can't come up with something else that's a little bit different than giving these guys all this freedom off those screens. So maybe that's Tibbs protecting Towns. This is the only thing he thinks he's comfortable doing. Where he won't get completely exposed. So maybe that's what it is. And that leads right to your point. If you got two guys like that at the point of attack and you're involving both of them, some possessions, it's just one of them. That's 50% of the equation. Some possessions, it's both. It's 100% of the equation. You got a problem. And I think people see that and they think that, hey man, maybe their offense could be so good, particularly Brunson, you could overcome it. You can't overcome it against a team this good offensively that you just played.
The difficulty and perhaps the irony is that one, Karl-Anthony Towns, I thought had a very good year. I mean, it's a difficult job, right? Going into a new place. He had a good year. And then number two, you look at it and say he just got traded, and yet I still think he has an enormous amount of trade value. The Knicks, now that you see how this team looks with all the different pieces that they have, and everybody should be coming back, all the key pieces, Bridges, Brunson, OG Anunoby, Mitchell Robinson's got another year, Miles McBride is there. So all their main guys should still be along for the ride. And I look at it and I go, if you were to trade for him, and if we're saying I'm not sure you could build a championship defense with those two guys, if you were to trade him, I think what you would need is Miles Turner. You need a player of that caliber who can, because you need the spacing for Brunson to operate the way he does. Cap provides that, but then you need somebody who could be a little bit more of a versatile defender and rim protector. So I thought that was, as I was sitting here thinking about if you had to trade him, who would you try to sign? And I was like, Miles Turner's kind of the perfect guy for them.
Well, you know what the talk is in New York. I mean, you know who they're talking about.
Is it, who is it? What's the name?
Number 34. He plays in Milwaukee.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a good option. That's not a bad one.
That's the name that you're going to hear nonstop between now and the summer, in the middle of the summer. And what would it take? Because they're so strapped, because they gave up so much for Bridges.
Yeah,
it would take absolutely 100% Towns. And then one or two of Anunoby and Bridges. Would you trade Towns, Bridges, and Anunoby for Giannis?
Here's my thing about a player like Giannis. He's 80% of it. I think this is about Jokic. I think it's about Luka. That's 80% of roster construction is, do you have one of those guys? So of course that feels steep. What else do you have to work with? But the answer is Giannis in New York City. Of course I would do anything to get that.
Well, and by the way, I saw somebody say legs don't do this. Charlie Saturday. I don't know what you mean by that. This isn't like. Yeah,
it's like legs' idea.
Yeah, it's not like I woke up this morning and was like, oh, we got to figure out a way to get Giannis to New York. No, read the New York Post. Read the New York Post. Right. There's a huge article on this exact topic written today. I think Mike
Also,
McCarr
by the way,
maybe.
I don't think it's crazy. I actually think that the season will wind down here in another 10 days or so after the finals. That conversation will pick up.
Oh, there's no
Giannis,
question. It's New York. It's New York, and it's Giannis. I mean, so
yeah.
you know that those rumors are going to be out there, man. Listen, pretty soon here, as soon as these finals are over, maybe before that, like there's a lot of people now that they've created an industry for people to just speculate about this stuff 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And if you don't think that Giannis's name is going to come up when it's already been reported that he's not going to be in Milwaukee next year, and I don't even know if that's true or not. Look, I want to be very clear about something. And Adam, nobody knows this more than you. Is there anything I hate more than hypotheticals?
Hypothetical
how
basketball.
I
We
feel
don't do
about
it.
man.
We don't do it.
I hate trade rumors. I hate free agency rumors. And the reason I hate that stuff is because 99% or more of every single rumor that you talk about will never happen.
Yeah.
Right? So what do we do? You're wasting your time, right?
People
So
love
I'm
it,
like,
though, yeah.
so when they talk to me about trade deadline shows at ESPN, like leading up to the trade deadline or like the shows right around free agency, I'm like, man, can I just come on after it's already done and just tell you what I think of the trade? And like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like who made out, what team won the trade, whatever, because that's tangible. All the hype of, Adam, I hate it.
Yeah.
That's just my personality in general. I don't like hypothetical questions. Give me something concrete because the Giannis thing's not my idea. Like people flip it out. I'm not trying to get Giannis to I don't care. I'm just telling you it's Giannis Antetokounmpo. There's already been reported he won't be there, and it's the New York Knicks. Of course that's going to come up. And it's already been reported in an editorial column in the New York Post today.
Yeah. And I think the bigger thing is we're talking about, you make this move to get Cat. That was a big move to bring him in. And so the question becomes, is that the right direction? And now that you have a year of really good, solid evidence, you didn't just see like, first round exit, who knows what could have been. No, you go all the way to the conference finals. You got 3 playoff rounds to look at and say, how does this work? And my point is, I don't know that they're going to ever be able to be better than what this is given those 2 guys, because you're always going to have the same weakness. You have great defenders everywhere else on the floor. But we saw that is going to be a weakness. And so then, of course, Giannis would, of course, be a guy that I think could play center next to Jalen Brunson. And so you're right. That conversation will heat up.
Hey, and
go
by
ahead.
the way, I want to tell you, too, because I've been following strongly, as I always do. I always like to read local coverage of teams. New York's a little different because that's like national coverage while it's local because it's the New York market. But so it's not hard to find. And there's a lot of outlets for it. But Towns isn't the only one that was being ripped. Brunson also caught some.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a guy that's, guy that's like is top 10 player in the league. I mean, that's how he's viewed, getting beat up and had a pretty big playoff run, but they were talking about specifically Saturday. He wasn't enough. And we know that. He needed to be more. He needed to be better. And he wasn't able to do it. But I have another question for you.
Okay.
What do you make of what happened with Josh Hart in this series?
He's such a unique player that I feel like there will be series where he is going to look better than others. And this is one of the ones where it kind of goes the other direction. So to me, he's one of those guys that will have big time series and then have ones where he struggles. This is one he struggles. Where are you kind of going with this?
Well, he's known as an energy guy, right? He's one of the best rebounding guys his size in the league. He plays tough. He's hard. All those things are true. Big Josh Hart fan. Josh Hart's a winner. But Josh Hart also was giving you 14 points a game during the season. He averaged like 5.5 made field goals a game.
Yeah.
He had 5 games in this series with 3 or fewer field goals. I mean, he's a starter. Then eventually they took him out of the starting lineup. They went with Mitchell Robinson. They switched things up, but he still was playing heavy minutes. He didn't play as many minutes Saturday. I think Tibbs had finally had enough, but like and he gets by just on such determination, and he's so good in the open floor. It's a big part of his game. And this was a fast-paced series. You think it would have lent itself to that. So he really struggled. And in a lot of ways, I think a lot of people were, it's kind of like, wow, okay, this guy's a starter for us. And look what happened to him. I mean, he just disappeared offensively. He still gives you effort and rebounding on defense and all that. But sometimes, man, you need to help put the ball in the basket. And he wasn't able to do it in the series. And I think there's some people kind of in New York also looking at that situation like, man, is this not what we thought it was? So, listen, it always happens when you lose. And I don't think there's a single person in New York City. And by the way, they were like betting favorites in the series. So it wasn't just in New York, but especially New York, that thought they could lose this series.
Really?
None of those in New York?
You know New York, but you know New York better than I do, Legs. That's your neck of the woods.
None of those people thought they could lose this series. No, I don't think the New York media thought that. The players didn't. I know Celebrity Row didn't. I know that. They ain't rolling out there to watch the Knicks lose. They jumped on. Some of those people jumped on because they thought the Knicks are going to the finals, man. And this is my way of making sure I get final seats. So I got to jump into the conference finals. Okay. Nobody in New York thought they were going to lose. This is so, and it always happens when you lose a series internally that you don't think you were going to lose. Like they thought they were better than Indiana. So now where are you, like mentally, what that does to you and your psyche about what you really are? And that's the whole point of your question, I believe, right? Like, what do you make of their season now? Yeah. It's a great question, Adam, because now it's fair to question all of it because it didn't end the way that they certainly expected. I think they're still in a little bit of shock what just happened to them. They could not consistently guard this team.
I think the Cavs, the Knicks, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, they're all in the same boat, which is you could talk yourself into, hey, it was a good year. So things didn't go our way, injuries, ball didn't bounce our way, whatever. And that's all true. Those things are true. There's a world where any of those four teams could have had a better run. But there is also the world that exists, which is, but these flaws aren't going away. You're still going to have to, if you win, if you work around the margins, you're still going to have to overcome the same flaws. And that's what's tough about it. I mean, it sounds harsh, but the truth is, Legs, the gap between the best team that wins the title and the second, third, fourth best teams right there, it's razor thin. And those are the margins. And if you don't have it, you have to look at the whole drawing board. And I think that's where the Knicks are going to find themselves this summer, is look at it and say, if we move around the margins, are we going to have the same flaws next year? Yes. That's uncomfortable. And I just think that's where they're at.
Yeah. And I think for me, this is, and you know how I felt about the Pacers. I think that I looked at them as a team. Very difficult. And how many times this year did I say they're incredibly tough to defend? I've been saying it about them all. Yeah, I said it about them last year. And that's just the truth. There's a lot of guys that hurt you. The style is very tough to prepare for. It's tough to adjust to. It's tough to cover all your bases against a team that plays that way. I think part of the Knicks internally, and maybe even in that city, the comfort zone, I think mostly was about Jalen Brunson. Like they've got this guy that has this meteoric ascension since he got to New York. And they believe they've got this guy that every night's going to figure it out and he's going to be great when it's all on the line. And they're right. He usually is. Problem is you got to get to that point. And they weren't able to do that Saturday, man. They weren't able to get to a place in the fourth quarter coming out of that under 7 timeout in a tie game. And now you got him and you feel really good about that. No, it was 15 at that point. That's different. And I think that's part of it. They've got this guy that, like, Jalen Brunson to the New York fan kind of came out of nowhere when he arrived there.
Yeah.
This guy was like a reserve in Dallas. And now he's like this $100 million free agent at the time. And everybody's like, yeah, Jalen Brunson's a really nice player. Knicks were like, oh, Jalen Brunson's a really nice player. Fans were like that. He's way better than that. And I think they feel like now they've got this guy that's going to be able to solve everything. And not a team like Indiana that moves the ball the way they do, shoots it the way they do. and they've got great coaching. Rick Carlisle has done an incredible job with this team, man.
Yeah. Well, we saved our analysis of the finals for later this week. We'll do a deep dive on it. I think Wednesday's show is going to be all about that. So you have 2 days to kind of prepare and hear our takes as we head into that series. But I will just say this. I'm excited for it. I love watching the Pacers play. I think they play an incredible brand of offensive brand of basketball. I think the Thunder play an incredible brand of defensive basketball. And I think both of these two teams unquestionably earn their spot in the finals. And that's what I love about it. So I'm excited for that one. You have any final thoughts here as we wrap up the conference finals?
No, man. I just think it's cool that we're going to get a team that's going to win it. When you look at the two cities, how much they love their teams, and Oklahoma City, obviously you got to go back to the Seattle days for them to have won a championship. Nothing since they got to Oklahoma City. Indiana, you got to go back to 2000 for a finals appearance. They don't have any titles. This is pretty cool because if you love basketball, you're going to see great basketball.
Yep.
And now look, Oklahoma City is going to be a prohibitive favorite. I haven't looked at any of the numbers. They're going to be a heavy favorite. Some people are saying sweep. Some people will say, gentleman sweep. Not too many people are going to say 6. Here's what the fascinating part about it all is to me, Adam. You have not only a great defensive team, you have a historically great defensive team. Yep. One of the greatest we've ever seen in this league. That's not an exaggeration. Just
Agreed.
From a metric standpoint, against a team that also by their own right is historic offensively the way they've played for about 3.5 months. So it's the ultimate, and by the way, this isn't a slight against OKC's offense. By the way, you don't win 68 games unless you could score. So, but their defense is what you're drawn to. Oh my goodness, look at this defense. How do you operate against it? Just ask the Timberwolves, man. They had enough of it. This is what is so fascinating about this series, man. This particular offense against this particular defense. It's almost like a Super Bowl when that happens some years where it's a team averaging 30 a game offensively against the number one scoring defense in the league, and you meet in the Super Bowl saying who's going to win out. And that's kind of what this feels like. So I can't wait. I'm going to be heading out there on Wednesday, man, and I will be there in the building for every one of these games as long as it lasts and doing all my post-game stuff, and I can't wait to get to OKC.
Well, that's going to be incredible, man. Do you have anything coming up here in the next couple of days people can catch you?
No, next 2 days, here's what I got. I got 17 hours of driving in a car with 2 dogs. Okay?
That sounds great.
My wife and my son flew up. They're already up there. They landed tonight. So they're back at our summer place. And I'm driving the dogs, and I'm going to be listening to 17 hours of true crime podcasts. That's what I'm going to be doing.
There you go. Gonna be a great drive up. You really painted a picture for us.
And then every now and then, if you were driving by me on the highway and you just glanced over and you saw this dude driving very animated in the car by himself, I'm probably saying something like, I knew it was the neighbor. I knew it was the neighbor the whole time. So my analysis is not just
you're plugged in. You're plugged in,
man. No, I'm dialed into all. I could do a touchscreen on a lot of these cases, man. They won't let me.
Detective Legs, man. In another life, I think you could have done it. We got one super chat here. I think it'll make you laugh here, Legs. What do we have, Emma? Chronic Sosa says, I wish Tim Legler was my dad, the MJ of analysts.
That's a very sweet thing to say. It's a beautiful thing to say, man.
Hit that outro music.
Hopefully my own children feel the same way. I hope so. I don't know.
Yeah. Everybody, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Like I said, we did it tonight because Legler has his drive tomorrow. That's why we couldn't do our normal time on Monday. He's going to be on the road. But we will be back with a show Tuesday, and then Legs will be back with me on Wednesday as we give our official preview of the finals. I can't wait for it. Stay locked in. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit the like button on the way out. We'll see you Tuesday.
We all silly like the mayor.